It's not all sweet honey and milk when it comes to the eruption and earthquake risk at Santorini. Perched atop of Santorini's sheer cliffs is a world-famous tourist industry worth millions, and underneath is a fizzing risk of an almighty explosion. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I am not, and I will tell you about the latest findings. And we should not forget that a huge ancient eruption has created this dreamy Instagram Greek island, how they call it. It has left a vast crater and a horseshoe-shaped rim. This is a volcano. And since we had that massive weeks-long earthquake swarm where we now have confirmation what caused it, I'll tell you about this in this video, the scientists are now investigating for the first time, only now, how dangerous the next big one at Santorini could be. I have already reported about this last week that they were hosting the Delphi Forum in Greece, and it was attended by many world-renowned geoscientists, geologists, and seismologists, and they have released their recent findings. And the scary thing is, scientists are warning, and also, according to the research of the biggest reinsurer, Lloyd, that is insuring businesses there, misjudgments in monitoring that Santorini area, the volcano and the fault lines and the earthquake risk could have serious economic consequences in the event of an eruption at Santorini. And they have primarily directed these remarks at representatives of the tourism industry. And why did they do that? Because weeks ago already, without decent conclusive scientific evidence, they have declared Santorini safe for the tourist season again. Very quickly, they declared Santorini safe. And they're already expecting tourism again. And tourism is coming. Many people have canceled, but they're coming. Because, and we will look into this, and here it comes, guys. Sit down. The measured data that they have received now indicate that a new cycle of events may already have begun. What does that mean? Well, if you're a follower of my channel, you have watched what's going on in Iceland since basically November 10th, 2023, when the first big magma intrusion happened with a magma dike that formed underground. And since then, the system has refilled, repeat, eruption, refilled, repeat, eruption, coming with lots of earthquakes. And now it is confirmed that the unrest that we have seen at Santorini was not tectonic, like they all wanted to make us believe in the first place. And boy, did I get a shitstorm for saying right at the beginning, I do not believe this is solely tectonic. I think there's magma involved. And this is confirmed now. We'll get into this, guys. So Santorini might have to brace for the next thing. And since the last drama there, this massive earthquake swarm with earthquakes magnitude 5+, and lots in the 4 ranges and lots in the 3 ranges, more has come out. Local scientists, engineers, and seismologists have looked at the buildings at Santorini. There's many illegal buildings and hotels with foundations not stable enough or not according to codes. So lots of buildings are at risk to fall down the cliffs because there's a risk of landslides. And through all that shaking that has happened for weeks, can they now really tell us that this is safe? Are they already done with all the building inspections? And now they might be ready for the next round. What does that do to maybe already rattled structures and also cliff sites? Don't forget, this is not super stable solid rock. This is volcanic rock that this island is built off. It's not an island, it's a crater. And I said it to you in my last video. At this Delphi conference, they released data that are even worse than the previous recorded earthquake during that earthquake swarm that happened end of January and in February, because they have used AI to process data readings like in the really microseismic range. And they found that during that crisis, there were over 50,000 earthquakes. So they were able to even pick up the weakest tremors from the measured values using AI technology, and that could not have been detected previously by conventional methods. So also the scientists have also examined more ancient seismograms, and they found out that ultra weak tremors that they call nanoquakes had occurred as early as November, October 2024 as part of the whole process. So it already started there. And let's talk about the land rise that's happening at Santorini that is measured. I've shown you the pictures while I was reporting about that earthquake swarm that clearly indicates that something is filling up under Santorini. So they also have looked at the GNSS data again. They had a second look and said, what's happening there? So the new analysis that they carried out has also brought new knowledge that is crucial. So they found out that the ground uplift, the land rise at Santorini, had already occurred in August 2024 during tourist season. And by the end of January 2025, that land rise had risen 4 centimeters. That is something in that little amount of time. And that's the interesting part, when then the seismic crisis started at the end of January, this land rise started shifting. It started shifting to the west. And where did it shift? It was shifting where we also saw the earthquakes spreading, basically to Anhydros, another island. And between Santorini and Anhydros, we have seen this massive earthquake swarm moving around, following the magma intrusion. There were clear signs. Because what happens if a magma chamber fills up and then reaches a point of maximum elasticity? It sends the magma out. That's what happened in Iceland on November 10th. Magma was sent out of the magma chamber, didn't find an easy way to reach the surface to cause an eruption, but was intruding underground, and it was traveling, finding its way, grinding a tunnel. And that's why we saw these earthquakes following the magma towards Anhydros. But what happened with the land rise at Santorini, where the magma chamber is located? At the same time, the ground at Santorini began to subside. Of course, because the magma chamber was being emptied out. The pressure was released because the magma was intruding towards Anhydros. There's lots of fault lines in the area between Santorini. There's also the Kolumbo underwater volcano that shows a land rise. So lots of smaller fault lines that could be triggered by that magma intrusion as well and could have caused additional earthquakes. So the land subsidence of Santorini was approximately 6 centimeters. And then, once that earthquake swarm came to an end, they were able to measure something else at Anhydros. Then also the ground near Anhydros subsided. And we've seen this in Iceland. After the dike was formed, we saw valleys, sickle valleys, how they call it, land subsidences along the dike. So at Anhydros, it was even more extreme. The GNSS stations have recorded a subsidence of 120 millimeters, 12 centimeters within only 2 weeks, and also a shift further to the west. So the data that they have analyzed now really indicate that a magma intrusion was happening and that the magma was intruding northeast, coming from Santorini, and then beneath Anudros. And this is completely in line with how this earthquake swarm was behaving. And here it comes, guys. Here it comes. The process is still ongoing. And didn't I say that? I have made update videos and I said, guys, there's still earthquakes in the area. Not like a big cluster swarm, but still in the 3s, sometimes in the 4s. So what is going on? Something is probably still flowing. But at the same time, we heard all is good, tourists come back, it's safe, it's beautiful. So all these development, what they found out now, they occurred in 4 phases of how they call it pulsatile seismicity of increasing duration, pulsatile seismicity. And they think that these magma intrusions happen at a depth of like 4 kilometers, 3 to 5 kilometers to give a broader range. And of course, if magma, that's material that's intruding in other areas. You inject something. Of course, this creates tension in the areas where it is intruded. And that's why I said it could have activated some of these smaller fault lines in the area if there's tension, of course. And that's why we've probably seen the stronger earthquakes, like the 5 ranges. So the process, we have to make this clear, is ongoing. And the scientists and researchers believe that this phenomenon will continue as long as the magma chamber keeps refilling, and it is refilling. The GNS data show that after the period of the strongest earthquakes had ended and the ground was subsiding at Anudros and on Santorini, the ground began to rise again. Does that sound familiar, guys? If you're new here, this is what's happening in Iceland. Pressure is in the magma chamber, too much pressure sends the magma out, but from a deeper magma reservoir, magma is still being fed to the more shallow magma body until it reaches the point of maximum elasticity again, and then it sends out another intrusion or even an eruption. In Iceland's case, more eruptions than intrusions. So the next event could be right around the corner, depending on how much time is needed to fill up that magma chamber again. And they don't have enough data about that. In Iceland, as it happens so often, they now can say, well, we estimate within the next 4 to 6 weeks, we could see the next eruption or intrusion. Here, they're not giving us a timeline. I guess we have to wait and find out. But it's tourist season and it's reaching peak tourist season with millions of people coming to the island. So many people that officials and authorities say it's overcrowded. So this is a very risky business, but Santorini is a moneymaker for Greece and Greece needs money desperately. So yes, they can't just say, let's close the island down, right? So the Santorini Marine Observatory is also looking at that problem. And even the BBC, they have accompanied some researchers on a field trip around Santorini to have a look at what that volcano is doing. And it's kind of concerning a little bit what they're finding. And it's concerning to me, as I said just a few minutes ago, because now this is only the first time that they're really looking into how dangerous could be the next big eruption of Santorini, because before they were like, this is so long ago, nothing's happening. And you know me, guys, I'm biting into this, right? I'm looking into this. So I hope you like that I'm doing this. If you do, please leave this video a like, by the way. And if you're new here, you have to subscribe to be a part of our group because we're looking into this. And so BBC spent a day, only a day, but it was interesting what they have reported on board of the British Royal Research ship called the Discovery. And they have also searched for clues. And, you know, Most people in the world, they know Santorini, oh, this beautiful island, you have the cliffside pools, it's such a beautiful view, and you can eat gyros, restaurants, hot dogs, Airbnb, rentals, vineyards, rich volcanic soil. But, you know, there's also two tectonic plates that are grinding in the Earth's crust, and that creates volcanoes as well. So on that boat was Professor Isabel Yeo, an expert on highly dangerous submarine volcanoes. She works for the British National Oceanography Center, and she's leading that mission. And you have to be aware that around 2/3 of the world's volcanoes are underwater, and they are hardly monitored. And guys, you have to wait for my next video because there's a new way to monitor and map these underwater volcanoes and fault lines and to predict what they're doing in real time. I haven't finished the video yet, so I can't put it in the end screen. Again, subscribe so that you get notified. You have to click the notification bell. So that's why they don't know that much about it. Santorini, you see only the edges of the crater, the rest is underwater. Same as the Kolumbo underwater volcano. That is not far, just a few hundred meters, a few miles, 4 miles off the coast. So the professor says about these volcanoes, like it's a bit like out of sight, out of mind. This is how people are behaving and how officials are behaving. And she says that, I mean that in terms of their danger. What you don't see is not scary, sort of thing. And she said, you know, if you compare it to volcanoes like Vesuvius with this big stratovolcano that is dominating the landscape, people are very well aware of this thing because they see it. But with underwater volcanoes, you don't see them, and some of them are higher than Mount Everest. They can pose all sorts of danger. Even if they only erupt small, they can have underwater landslides that can trigger tsunamis that will be devastating, and that can happen in the Mediterranean and in Greece, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, all these areas. So they're using robots, like bigger robots, like car-sized robots, to look at the ocean floor and to see what the danger is down there. What their target is, they really want to understand what that seismic swarm means for Santorini, what type of seismic unrest happened and what type could indicate a volcanic eruption is imminent. Santorini's last eruption was in the 1950s at this Nea Kameni island that's in the middle of the crater. But as recently as 2012, there was another unrest in that area. Definitely then, magma, she says, the professor says, magma flowed into the volcanoes. We're talking about Santorini, magma chambers, and the island has swelled up. And she makes it clear that underwater volcanoes are capable of really big, really destructive eruptions. And she says, quote, "We are lulled into a sense of false security if you're used to small eruptions and the volcano acting safe, as Santorini is or has been. Then you assume the next will be the same, still a small thing, yeah, tourist eruption, how they call these things." But she says, but it might not. It might not. And it's not that there's no underwater eruptions happening around the world. Let's look just a few years back. 2022, the Hunga Tonga eruption in the Pacific has produced the largest underwater explosion ever recorded. It has created a tsunami in the Atlantic with shockwaves felt even in the UK. So some islands in Tonga that were near the volcano, they were so devastated that their people never returned. And then the researcher points out where our research vessel is situated right now. Beneath our feet on the ship, like 984 feet down, that's roughly at a depth of 300 meters, there's bubbling hot vents. They call them fumaroles. It's basically cracks in the seafloor, in the earth. And at that area, they turn the seafloor into a bright orange world of protruding rocks and gas clouds. You see that they have sent down their robot there to have a look at this. So there is something brewing while the people are sitting in their maybe unstable cliffside pools. And the problem is, that's what the researcher says, that we know more about the surface of other planets than we know what's down there beneath our feet. So what they're doing with that robot, they're sending it down to the seabed to collect fluids, gases, and also take rock samples. So where are these vents coming from? They are hydrothermal, meaning that hot water is pouring out from these cracks. And this is a sign, this is a phenomenon that often occurs near volcanoes. And that's why these researchers will take quite a bit of time to research that area. A whole month, actually, they have dedicated to do that research. And the problem is, that's a big challenge. So far, nobody has been able to work out if a volcano becomes more dangerous or less dangerous or explosive when seawater, like salt water, in these vents mixes with magma. I mean, we know if magma from eruptions is flowing into seawater, it gets really explosive. So what they're trying with this research vessel is they also want to map the seafloor and want to map the hydrothermal system of Santorini. And it's difficult, right? It's not like that they're making their map on land. She says, quote, "We have to look inside the earth, and it's underwater." So they're investigating Santorini's caldera, but they're also going out to Kolumbo to see what's going on there, if tensions there could spread to Santorini and vice versa. It's a major volcano, only 4.3 miles northeast of Santorini. That's about 7 kilometers. So the researchers make it clear, both volcanoes are not expected to erupt imminently, but they're telling us it's only a matter of time. So what is badly needed and what they're trying to do with this mission is they're trying to create geohazard maps and of course data sets for the Greek Civil Protection Agency. They badly need that because they don't have that. And this is badly needed because not only the tourists, but the locals need to know how active the volcanoes are and how active Santorini is for the locals that live on top of it. Like for the people that live right on top of Campi Flegrei, it's highly monitored. And they also need to map areas where they will have to restrict access, especially during an eruption. So that these hydrothermal vents that they have discovered, they're underwater. And that's a problem because it's not like these fumaroles that we see on land in Campi Flegrei, for example, but also at Yellowstone. If they're underwater, these hydrothermal vents can make ocean volcanoes quite unpredictable. And that, of course, is critical. So hydrothermal vents, when they open and you see it bubbling, they can take fluid out of volcanoes, take pressure out, maybe make them less explosive. I talked about this in my last Yellowstone video. They have new knowledge about that there. But fluids and magma, when they mix, that can also generate massive explosions. So that's a problem, right? So hopefully we will see the results of this study soon because they're promising us that they will reveal which parts of the Santorini seafloor are the most hazardous. Probably around Nea Kamenni and probably the northern part of the Santorini caldera where we've seen the land rise northwest. But the problem is, gosh, to do these missions, it's incredibly expensive. That's why, they They're there for a month, but they're working 24 hours. They're working in shifts, day and night. And they have also shown us already some of their rock samples. And some of the rocks you can't even touch because they're arsenic. And then they're showing some rocks. They look like black and orange marine with gold dusting. And then the scientists say, this rock is a real mystery. We don't even know what it's made of. Wow, so what is going on? They need to really, really look into these rocks because this will give them valuable insight about the history of fluids down there, temperature, and material inside the volcano. These rocks are like a time capsule. But what the researchers already know and what they're already telling us is, and that's kind of concerning again. What they're discovering, they say this is a geochemical environment that is different to most others. They think it's really exciting. I find it concerning. And they also have already discovered a pool of fluids on the seafloor. They don't know what it is yet. They have also recorded very small earthquakes around the volcano. We're talking about Santorini. And these earthquakes are caused by fluid moving through the system and causing fractures. That is going on as we speak right now. And they even have audio recordings of these fractures. They say it sounds like the bass in a nightclub being amped up and down. Whoa. So they're trying to create a 3D map and they want to find out how these fluids move through the rocks. They're using or they're pulsing an electromagnetic field into the earth. And then they're getting this 3D map that shows them how the hydrothermal system of Santorini is connected to the volcano's magma chamber, where the eruption will originate from. So what the scientists are saying is that we're doing science for the people, not science for the scientists. We're here to make people feel safe, they say. I'm not sure that you're making people feel safe, and that's not their job, in my opinion. They need to tell people the truth. Because what we've seen with the recent earthquake crisis, that has really highlighted how exposed Santorini residents are to these seismic threats, how reliant they are on tourism, and how dangerous it all is together. People have definitely canceled their vacation trips. April is showing definitely lower bookings, significantly lower bookings. So guys, Santorini remains interesting and maybe we will see another crisis very soon. Hopefully not. Hopefully for the people, they can have their tourist season. They need that income. But is it completely safe if you ask me? Sadly, I have to say, if it was me, I wouldn't go there. I'd go somewhere else because they don't know enough. In Iceland, they know enough right now that it's kind of safe to go there when they tell you to. I mean, I wouldn't go to the Blue Lagoon at all because this is on top of the magma chamber. They always tell you that it's safe because it's their biggest moneymaker. But no problem traveling to Iceland if you are informed, and this is only a small area where the volcano is. Santorini is also a small area, but you're sitting on an island and you're sitting right on top of it. That's the problem, right? In Iceland, you don't need to book a hotel in Grindavik if you feel uneasy. You can go to all these other beautiful places and you're safe. But Santorini, that is the volcano. That is a volcanic crater. I mean, would you build a house right on top of Vesuvius crater and live there? Probably not. Well, they've done this with Campi Flegrei because they didn't know, because that's not a stratovolcano. It has several smaller craters that you only see from aerial views. It's so highly densely populated. That's why this thing is so dangerous, and it's dangerously rumbling. If you're interested in that, check out the videos in the end screen. And I have something very interesting for you, a video about I called it Florida's silent enemy, because you don't need a volcanic eruption or an earthquake or a hurricane or a tornado or a lightning and all the other stuff that you can encounter in beautiful Florida. They have a sinkhole problem, and it's not in an isolated area. It's a huge problem. It's everywhere, and it's in areas where you wouldn't think it is. And it can swallow up your home. It has swallowed up car dealerships. It has swallowed up roads, bridges, everything. And it can happen at basically any time underneath your house or apartment building. So you have to be very, very cautious if you buy a house there, or if you even rent something, because you might step out in your garden and boop, or even in your bedroom while you're sleeping. This happened to a man. So check out this video, guys. I think this is, mind-blowing. I wasn't aware that it's so bad, and that all these little lakes that you see, Orlando, Ocala, Lakeland, the villages, have been sinkholes. I only worried about alligators. I thought there's so many lakes. If you have a property with so many lakes, there's all these alligators. I really looked into Florida because I like the Ocala area. I have horses, right? But I don't want horses swallowed up by a sinkhole while they're on the pasture. And this might sound ridiculous, guys, but if you watch this video, you will understand. So click this here. Stay safe, be prepared. Really, don't rely on what realtors tell you, or what homeowners tell you, or what hotel tourism industry tells you, or whoever. Do your own educated research. I'll end this video now. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.